Hi, Balint here, the author of Rock and Roll with Ember.js book. Today I want to show you something which has landed in Ember 3.4 and which I think is really cool. So it should be a quick video. Let's get right into it. So the idea of template-only components is that if a component doesn't have a JS file, then when you invoke the component, there is no implicit tag wrapped around the component's template. So implicitly, if you don't define anything, there is a div around your template file, wrapped around your template file. But with this feature turned on, there is no such div. So here you can see the hello world example. I want to show you something similar and how to convert an existing component to a template-only component. So the component I'm going to convert to a template-only one is the star rating component in the Rock and Roll with Ember.js app, which is used to rate these songs. It could also be used to rate books or anything else. And in a previous video, I converted the calling of that component to the new angle bracket invocation syntax. I'm going to link to this video in the description. So now this star rating component is called stars because with the angle bracket invocation syntax, we can have single word components. And so that already works. And on the left, you can see how the component is invoked. So let me show you the component file. So this is the JS file that we want to get rid of so that we can use the template only, so that it becomes a template only component. And on the right, you can see the current template file of the component. So we have to get rid of these things, or maybe better said, move these things into the component layer. For example, class names is going to be applied on the wrapping div. So we have to keep that in mind that once we got rid of the wrapping div, this has to be applied from where we call the star rating component from. And the other thing is the stars, which is a computed property. And you can see on the right that this is the basic thing that the component does. It loops through these stars, and there is an isFull property on all of them, on each of them, which determines whether to display a full or an empty star. So we'll have to move this implementation to here too. And last is the set rating action that we call whenever the user clicks on that on the star. So it's pretty easy, I think, because we just have to pass the onClick action handler, which was passed into the component. Okay, so let's start with the set rating action. So here, set rating in quotes is going to call the named action on the component, but we know that it has been passed in as onClick, so we might as well call onClick directly, and we use the new, we are passing the new rating on, so that's actually all that we have to do. I'm just pause for a moment because onClick might not be the best name if there is no component file. But anyway, I'm not going for perfection here. I just want to see how hard it is to convert such a component. Okay, so there is that. The max rating has the default value of 5, but the user can pass in any other value, and it's going to go up until max rating. So let's have that passed in by the caller. onClick, if there is no component file, then it makes no sense to have it there. So that's what we are left with. We have to implement a loop in the template on the right that goes from 1 to max rating and then displays either a full star or an empty star. So we are going to display full stars until we reach the current rating, and then the rest should be empty stars. I've actually already introduced a bug. If you come to see what has become of the songs page, you realize that all the stars are gone now. And the reason for that is that since I removed the default max rating setting in the component class, now when I loop over all the values from 1 to max rating, it's not going to contain anything because this max rating is undefined. So we said that we should pass in max rating from the call site. So let's do that. And anything that it's not a string, is not quoted, should be wrapped in mustaches. So now that should fix our problem. Okay, the stars are back. So we are left with this computed property called stars. If we can get rid of that one by moving it into the template, then we can delete this file and then we have a template only component. So what's happening here? Well, it goes from 1 to max rating. There's a counter that goes from 1 to max rating, and then isFull is going to be true as long as the rating, the current rating of the item is bigger or equal than this counter. Okay, so we can do that. One thing I've already done is I've created an up to helper, which I would like to use and which should just give back the numbers from start to end, so between two values that are passed in. So we'll need the params because those will be passed in, and let's say the first is going to be the starting value and the second one is going to be the end. So otherwise it's pretty much what we have on the left. So if we go from I to end, and each time we just push the number into an array and return that array. So that should be fine. And now instead of using stars, we should use those numbers. So we go from 1 to max rating, and that's just a number. And instead of star.rating, so you can see here on the left that the rating was just the number. It was just a way to return that counter value. So this is rather easy to replace. And then here we should do the same thing. So if this rating, which in this case is at rating, is greater than or equal to I, then we should return a full star, and otherwise we should return an empty star. Let's see. No, it did not work. It seems like all of those stars come back empty. Do we have an error on the console? We don't. So then at rating, oh, because it's not I, this is a number. Okay, now it's good. So now we are ready to remove the component file and have a template only component finally, because we have moved everything to the template. Before we do that though, let's grab that file name, class name, and make sure to do the wrapping explicitly. So now what we should see is there should be two divs, one because of the explicit wrapper that we just added, and another one is the one created by Ember. And indeed, you can see that the one created by Ember has this Ember view class on it. So that's the one, the inner one that we want to get rid of. So let's delete the stars, the component file itself, and see if something has changed. Let's quickly grab this from there is the list, there is the first item. We still have the div added by Ember. So let's see why. So the reason we still have that, the implicit wrapper, is that because we have to explicitly enable template only Glimmer components. So that's an optional feature. Ember has this great add-on called Ember optional features, where you can turn on or off features from the command line. So if you say Ember feature list, it will give you all the features that you can toggle, and one of those are going to be template only Glimmer components. And then we can enable that one also from the command line. So you have, the last one is what we need. So it's Ember feature enable template only Glimmer components. You also have a jQuery integration and application template wrapper. Okay. Ah, nice. So okay. So to be conservative, it's recommended that you add a JS5, but we do not need this because we already added explicitly that wrapper. So no, I do not want. And it also tells me to commit config optional features JSON, and that's because that is the file where these features are configured. So you can see that this second line was just added by Ember CLI. So now, I guess if we load the app, then we will see. So it's still there, I think. Let me verify, because the layout is still off. Yes, it's still there. So let me restart and see if that helps. So restarting did help, but there is an error which breaks the page and which says action passed is null. And that's because I forgot to use the @ sign in front of onClick. So when you invoke a component via the angle bracket syntax, then you have to use the @ signs for component arguments everywhere. So that should fix that. So now that's good. And we see that something has changed because the layout has changed. And if we take a look, then I think we'll find that we do have that wrapping rating panel, but we forgot to add, we had an FR class on our rating panel. So let's add that back. So when we removed the component, it was gone too. Component file. Right, so that's very much like it was before, and it seems like everything just works. So that wraps up this screencast. you might observe that we haven't really accomplished anything. We are back where we started, but we had to explicitly define this wrapping div. That's true in a way. I mean, converting to template only components is definitely not for every use case there is. For example, if there is some serious business logic or any kind of logic really in the component file, then I wouldn't advise to get rid of it and implement the same in the template. I think in this case it wasn't bad, so that I think in this case this was warranted. And I also like how this is really explicit. Like if you want to change the wrapping tag from div to something else, you just write HTML. There is no special syntax where you have to go into the component file and modify tag name or pass tag name equals something into the component call. And classes are similar. I mean, CSS classes can just be set on the wrapping element. So I think this is a great fit for lots of use cases, but not all of them. So thank you for watching this, and see you soon.